Well, folks, thanks for tuning in today, and we're going to follow up on a number of items for our Canadian and our U.S. Watchers and listeners, starting off with, of course, the State of the Union address, which was last night, but also looking at some interesting immigration crime related items and some investment items that might make you kind of excited. So looking at the State of the Union, look, there's lots that is being written about it, and talking about writing about it. History shows, a number of commentators are pointing on this, that this has really elevated the State of the Union address by a president. Never used to be at the level of sort of monarchy and, the king being introduced. We see this not just, of course, with President Trump, but President Obama, the way he would get heralded in, and other presidents before them. And it used to be the president would just send in a written report on the State of the Union and not be able to use this particular address. But this seems to be the focus is always on the person, seemed to be the leader. But it's the individuals, it's the congressmen, the congresswomen, the senators in Canada. We're looking at the members of Parliament who more and more should be speaking up on issues and not just leaving it to a leader and the so-called smart kids in the leader's office who are saying, will always tell the leader, don't raise this and don't talk about that. So with that as backdrop and more people commentating on that, I don't think you're going to see a change in the State of the Union very soon in terms of that particular speech. And it generally turns out to be the same anyway, a good combination of facts. And there was a pretty healthy list of solid facts in terms of economic turnaround in the U.S. Of course, when you put those up and you say they're fact-checked, then you get the opposing media coming out and saying, no, there's not really that much so. So people are going to have to do a lot more work on their own in terms of digging into these, and that's what I try to give you on this particular podcast. It's one thing that, among many actually, that doesn't get a lot of attention is a really breakthrough policy move by allowing these $1,000 accounts, not allowing them, but starting them for every boy or girl that is born. Starting last year in the U.S., they get $1,000 put into account at birth. That grows. They're not allowed to take it out till they're 18. That grows with interest. It just naturally grows without any help. And family members, loved ones can actually add to the account at no tax rate. And that account, by the time a person gets to be 18 years old, can be very significant. A lot of socialists and people who lean to the left don't like that type of thing, because any time that individual citizens have a little more say over their financial future, the socialists and even the centrist liberals don't like that. They like more government control. A big high moment. There were a number of them that were interesting to watch, but certainly nobody thought Canada would be referred to as fantastic in the speech from the throne from President Trump, but in fact, that's the word he used when he described the Canadian hockey team as being fantastic. But of course, that was the lead up to introducing the U.S. team, probably one of the highlights of the night. So Canadians shouldn't feel badly about that. It's a big deal when you can beat a Canadian team, and we should all celebrate that. And just a word of advice to, as they're going into the election season, to the image makers on the Republican side: get that Jack Hughes kid and his smile and the broken teeth and the blood, and he's raising his hand in victory like that. It's almost reminiscent of the picture of President Trump when he got up after being shot. I'm not suggesting the two should be necessarily linked, but that's going to forever stand as a landmark photo, especially after his teeth were smashed out and a penalty sent to the Canadian player who did that. So interesting items coming out from the speech from the throne. Keep an eye on that. It'll quickly fade, but what people will be watching now, and I'll keep you updated on this, is the polling. It'll show whether President Trump gets a little bump in the polls from the speech. Usually presidents, whether it's President Clinton or whether it's President Obama in his second term when he was doing badly, usually get a little bump from that. Let's see if it works out. I'll tell you who's getting a bump in Canada is people who are on drugs on the street might be facing some increased legislative approach to them, because in Ontario, Premier Ford is looking at giving special powers to police forces to actually arrest people for being or appearing to be visibly on drugs and visibly in a threatening situation or being a threat to others. That shows it's kind of like one of the final and expected results of the policies that have been run by a number of provinces in Canada and some in the US, where basically they thought decades ago, even up to 20 years ago, that free drug sites, drug injection sites, free drugs and free paraphernalia was going to solve the problem. It's only made it far worse, with everything going up on the negative side, which would be increased death on the streets, increased problems, increases in crime. And so I think we should sort of acknowledge, give a bit of a thumbs up to the Ontario government. They're at least taking a look at some alternative ways maybe of dealing with the situation. We'll see where that particular thing goes. Well, talking about the streets and illegal people, recently reported, and I give Canada's funded broadcaster a little bit of credit for reporting on this. There's a lot of, what should we say, controversy around Premier Daniel Smith in Alberta wanting to clamp down on illegal asylum seekers who get into the province, commit crimes, and yet still get better health care and more money, and in some cases, not all, than regular citizens. Well, the CBC has released documentation showing that the number of asylum seekers, refugees, has hugely increased. It's gone up gigantically over the last few years under the Liberals. The other thing that's disturbing, usually if you wanted to get into Canada and claiming asylum because of maltreatment in the country that you're fleeing from, you had a hearing, and then there would be a board that would make a decision on whether you get to stay or not. That has been almost sidelined. Those board hearings are so lined up, and the queue is so long for people waiting to get heard, that paper appeals, just an appeal written on paper, is now the major way in which asylum seekers can get into the country. And so the fact checking on whether they're truly being persecuted, on whether it's truly a matter, will they face death or torture if they go back to their country, that is being sidelined, and thousands upon of people getting into Canada based on these written assessments. So we need to be, and hopefully governments will be taking a look at that. And the point that Premier Daniel Smith is making, and that that the leader of the Conservative Party federally has made, is that people who are getting in, first of all, illegally and then committing crime should not be allowed to stay. That would seem to be fairly basic. What the Liberals do, small L Liberals and the leftists, in Canada that's the NDP, the Socialist Party, they try and make it out that anybody who is a small c Conservative doesn't like immigrants. Of course, that's not the case at all. And immigrants increasingly are joining and supporting conservative causes. What people are saying, and this is what I say to whether it's Premier Smith and her supporters, or whether it's the Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, you've got to just keep saying it and repeating it again and again, that we're talking about illegal entrance, illegal people breaking into our country illegally and committing crimes while here, should not be allowed to come in, and should definitely not be bumping citizens and Canadians out of the healthcare lineups. That's what's happening. Well, rewarding people for the wrong things, a little bit on the news. If Matt Genereux, the member of Parliament who recently defected from the Conservatives, the Edmonton member, over to the Liberals, thought that he was going to be, this would sort of fade in the past. A huge recall movement is starting in his constituency, thousands of signatures being signed, and especially so since he's recently, some say, did he get an award? Did he get rewarded somehow for coming over to the Liberals? That's not really known, but he's just been announced as one of a very few members who's doing a giant worldwide tour with Prime Minister Carney. So call it reward, call it what you like. It's getting scrutiny. Another thing, getting scrutiny on a very disturbing way, as the issue around that terrible tragedy in Tumbler Ridge, the killing mainly of so many kids by the biologically born male transgender teenager. His brother's just been arrested. His brother's been out really running from the law for 2 years on violent crime warrants, even those to do with attempted murder. And that wasn't being broadly broadcast in the news. He's just been arrested in Sylvan Lake, Alberta, running from the law, just showing a lot of problems in that family. Terrible situation here. Well, another family that's suffering, of course, and around the world, people are watching the whole situation with with Mrs. Guthrie, being Savannah Guthrie's mother, being kidnapped. It's still huge in the news. The reward now is up to $1 million. $1 million. And not wanting to cast negative feelings on this, but everybody who's involved in investigations like this, and as Canada's former Minister of Public Safety, I know a little bit about this. The longer a person goes without being found, the more negative the stats are in terms of them one day being found alive. We certainly hope and pray that will be the case. But as I pointed out, now we've got a reward up to $1 million. We are, unfortunately, going to be seeing more of these dramatic sort of kidnappings. I'm not looking forward to that, and I'm not saying the Guthries are handling this improperly in any way. They desperately want their mother back, but this is going to be a trend. Well, the ongoing anti-Semitism around, not just around the world, but in Canada, increases. We now have, and let's just call them Palestinian supporting groups. They are at universities, they are throughout the country in Canada. They're now petitioning the government saying Jewish summer camps, summer camps for kids should be shut down. And there's quite a number of these Jewish camps that take place in the summer, as there are Christian camps and other secular camps. And this is especially vile, going after Jewish camps. And we should be naming the groups that are doing that. Along with that, a former deputy premier in Alberta is in hot water right now, and rightly so. Thomas Reugees has always been seeking the limelight, as most politicians do, and his recent association with the Holocaust, with Premier Daniel Smith's approach and concern about illegal immigrants is, I can't find the words. Words like disgusting and vile come to our attention, suggesting this. And so you put this together, put that thought together. And by the way, he tried to back away from that, but he didn't do a very good job. But you put this together with Jewish summer camps and the risk of the nut bars that are out there who want to take violent action. The more we have stupid commentary like this, the more it will hit and affect the minds of the unbalanced people, who then feel justified in going out and doing something violent. So hopefully Thomas Reugees will do a better job of saying he is sorry on this and saying there's absolutely no association whatsoever, and that he was just plain dumb, wrong, and stupid for saying it. Well, all of these things create anxiety, and we hear a lot, and there's a lot being written about men's anxiety and young men and anxiety. A recent study, this was just released 2 days ago, of 34 countries show that women's anxiety is actually more women suffer from debilitating anxiety than men do. And especially among those women who are apparently the achievers. 47% now of women are purported to have degrees, college degrees, whereas 37% are among men. But with that comes the pressure to achieve. And many of the courses that the women are taking, which might be interesting courses to take, but have no practical use out in the workplace, so they're not finding work in at the length and the height that they had hoped. And it's not anything against women. Of course, women are totally accepted freely in the workforce these days, and have been for a couple of decades or a few decades. But they've got the increased debt. Then they have the pressure of no jobs. And some of the women in the study are reporting they're looking around at those who who are purporting to be successful women, and it's the somewhat still ridiculed so-called trad wives, the young women who are making decisions to find their sense of peace and comfort in family, in marriage, in raising kids. They have higher rates of a sense of well-being and a sense of success. So these are some of the factors here. And then people point at the fact, well, the suicide rate for men is higher. That's a bit misleading there. Suicide attempts are much higher among women, attempted suicide. The fact that more men are successful is that men usually choose a much more violent way to end their lives than women tend to do. Women resorting more to pharmaceuticals and drugs. Men are much more prone to something very drastic and horrific, like using a firearm or leaping from buildings. So men more successful, but women are trying it more. And, you know, I'm not taking a full moment of silence here, but I'm just pausing to think about Martin Short and his family and his beautiful daughter at the age of 42, just reported she took her life in their Los Angeles home. So our hearts certainly go out to her. And again, it reflects the anxiety that is out there, especially among women. Well, one counter to that, we know a lot about TikTok and everybody watching all of the reels on TikTok, but a real growing sensation, they're calling it work talk, and it's TOK still. And what's happening is more and more millennials and even some Gen Zs are posting just shots of them sitting at their work desk, and they call it 9-to-5ers, 9-to-5 TikTok videos, just sitting there working, not even talking so much, and people by the millions are watching these work talk reels, and they're watching mainly because it's kind of peaceful, and there's not a lot of running around and screaming and shrieking. And so there you go, work talk. If any of you thought that boring is good, some people seem to like it. Well, one person that is not enjoying the attention that he's been getting is Barry Neufeld, a teacher in Canada, British Columbia teacher, and I've reported on this, fined now by the what we call it the Star Chamber. These are these human rights tribunals which really do away with many of the rules of justice, many of the rules of evidence, rule of the ability to have a jury, and secretly, almost secretly, in a very restricted, Star Chambers come out with heavy fines. Barry Neufeld fined $750,000 for his postings relative to his concerns on LGBTQ training, etc. And that's just gigantic. When the tribunal was asked about the extent of the fine, they said, hey, that's light, he should have had more. So that's going to be challenged, and it should be, because these type of situations should be adjudicated publicly and in courts, and people allowed the full traditional 100 years of not just tradition, but a fundamental justice that are being overruled by these so-called tribunals. It's not affecting, it's affecting not just in speech, but we've got now John Cleese, famous comedian from Britain, saying he somehow was asked about that particular case, and he says, making him worry about even coming to Canada if you can't have freedom of speech. So interesting to see how many people are affected by that. Well, as far as worry, and we do hear with some justification concerns about AI and the absolutely stunning, rapid way in which AI is replacing many of the people needed to work in so many areas. It's not all bad news. The University of Toronto is advertising their own AI training program, and they talk about 6 programs that they funded and got attracted, 6 programs of unique applications of AI that have created, they say, 20,000 jobs. So depending on what the program is, you might actually be creating jobs. And one of them, you go online, you can see it, young woman by the name of Diana Vicoca. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. When she was 14, she's 17 now. When she was 14, she went to Mumbai with her family to India. Was very disturbed by seeing the accounts of sickness from water pollution. When she got back, she took upon herself to go online and get her course and understanding of quantum chemistry, a very high-level course, and she was able to master that online. And at 17 years old, has developed an app using AI that releases new kinds of preventative molecules when water is exposed to sunlight. And she's really making some breakthrough stuff there. So these are anecdotal, these are one of a kind, but they are not a one-off. These programs are leaping up, and AI does create very positive job-creating situations from time to time. So keep an eye on those. Well, as we watch, we were talking about President Trump, and as we look in the U.S. at who's lining up to run get the ticket for the Democrat, who will be running in the next presidential election. And we saw last week how AOC, she kind of embarrassed herself with her late night postings with her significant other snoring in the background behind her. But Gavin Newsom just ran into a pile of trouble. He was doing an event with the mayor of Los Angeles, and suggesting to the mayor that, hey, as a black, he's white, but listen, he identifies with black people because he has low ACT scores also. And it just shocked everybody that he would say that in his attempt to be saying, hey, I'm just like everybody else. So severe backtracking there from Gavin Newsom, sounding like he's saying, hey, I'm just like you, black folks, I get low ACT scores. Crazy stuff going on there. We'll see if he recovers. He probably will, because mainstream media, though they did report it, they always let liberals off the hook. A story that has really been of interest, and it's just been has been building, and now millions and millions of viewers tuning in to the ongoing daily saga of Punch the monkey. Punch, that's his name, the monkey, in a zoo near Tokyo. Many of you will know the story. Was abandoned by his mother and was seen to be forlorn, and then somebody literally apparently threw into the cage one of these, they call them plush orangutan. It's a fake orangutan. It's like orangutan play doll made by IKEA, interesting. And of course, if you know the story, Punch the monkey has taken quite significantly to the stuffed orangutan, drags it all around, and seems to be really settling in, and people are just enamored and drooling, and isn't this wonderful? And millions of people now tuning into daily Punch the monkey, so lonely, and now being comforted. And the thought hit me, am I showing the same, I mean, I like watching that, it's kind of fun stuff, but I show the same level of concern for not just the abandoned monkeys, but the people around me that might feel abandoned, might feel discouraged. Hopefully we can translate some of this one-off feeling for abandoned monkeys into people around us who might need a word of encouragement. There's a thought for the day for you. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you tomorrow.